Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Doctor Who review, episode number 70. Here reviewing the final story under Jodie Whittaker's run. You're probably curious though, why am I covering a part of the image? Well, not basically of Jodie Whittaker's face. It's because there's a spoiler on the cover of this thing, which I'll discuss that soon. So, this story is the final story of Jodie Whittaker's run. The last story. And it's a regeneration story. There are two generations in here, and I'll get to the reason for that. So, the story opens right after the credits. And we see this art gallery. We see this mysterious person, this woman. They turn the camera around, and it's Ace! Now, I did hear about this, that she was coming back, but... Now, here's the thing. I already knew what she looks like. Now, aside from the fact she's older... And if you're curious, so how old is Sophie Adler who plays Ace? Alright, here we go. The actress who plays her, Sophie Aldred, she is 60. Yeah, 60 years old. Yep. Yeah, 60 years old and comes back here for this story, which is so awesome, the fact that she does that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But she's not going to come back. She makes a phone call to Tegan for the first time she's been seen since, like, if we think about it, this is probably her first appearance she's made in a canon story since Resurrection of the Daleks. Yeah, it is something of the fact that, well, but before this we have Doctor stopping the returning Cybermasters versus Imitators of the Timeless Child. And by the way, the Master who returns this story, he is asked this obvious question which no one answers. He is not answered. How did you survive the destruction of Gallifrey? He never explains. I'm like, you're probably thinking, is that lazy writing? That's the Master for you. He doesn't explain anything. Because it's a Master. What do you expect? So, and of course the mysterious thing about, we have these paintings disappearing. And they explain the reason why. And then we have this flashback to like 1916 Russia. Where we have this guy, he says, doctor, come in. And, this is Rasputin, but no, it's the Master betraying Rasputin. Now, here's the thing about Rasputin. He is a real person. Yes, did the way the Master looked in the episode with a big bushy beard, long hair, did he look like this in real life? Pictures I've seen, yes. And I did read a story once. Excuse me, that was on Wikipedia that could be true or false. Where actor Christopher Lee, when he was a child, he briefly met the man who was alleged to have killed Rasputin back in the late 1910s. He drowned him, basically by drowning. So, he allegedly met the murderer of Rasputin. He never met Rasputin, he just met the guy who murdered him. I'm like, you're thinking, that's interesting. Yes, so, he was like, it's like, you're the Master by... and we also have, get this, Tsar Nicholas II here along with his wife. Yeah, Tsar Nicholas II, as in the final Tsar ever in the history of the whole entire royal family. They don't mention what happened. It's like, take a vacation, and this could explain what happened to him later, so we'll get to that. So the Side Masters basically are here to get this thing in this box, which that plays a role later on the story, and this is quite strange with that one. So apparently Tegan has been being like running around, like about volcanoes, and of course she's in Romania. Like, that's interesting. And then of course next time we see him, they're at Unit. Yes, Unit. The other two, Ace has worked with Unit before. Well, they say it was actually 1997, but the episode came out in 1989. Yes, seriously. So the Doctor is called to... Well, first we have Dan leaving. Yes, Dan is seen... Well, after the whole thing with the opening scene, he just openly leaves the group. Yeah, he just leaves, which, that's interesting. Yes. Who would have thunk, basically, he would leave? And he is not really seen again until, like, halfway through the story. And we have returning characters here, don't worry about that. So, pretty much, basically, like... Then we have the Doctor seeing the brand new UK headquarters for Unit, which is this giant building. I don't know if this really exists in the UK or not. I have no idea. Of course, then she meets the freelancers. Ace and Tegan. She's like, Ace. And of course, they bring up the fact for Ace, it's been 30 years. Tegan, it's been almost 40 years since she was last seen. Now you're probably thinking, like, what does this mean, you might ask, when they say 40 years? Well, they say like 38. Well, because Tegan was last seen back in 1984. Ace was last seen back in 1989. So, yeah, that's a reference to how long it's been since they were last seen in the show. And Tegan, I'm glad the fact that basically the actress has not forgotten to play Tegan. Despite the fact it's been 38, despite the fact at the time when this came out last year, it's been 38 years. She also got this Cyberman toy, which, not surprising that Ace and Tegan know who the Cyberman is, because they both took on the Cyberman during their era. Tegan took him on in Earthshock, which is a reference to that a little bit later, and Ace took him on in Silver Nemesis. Though her version, the one she took on, has slightly updated look. So, yeah, and by the way, this tiny Cyberman plays a role later on in the story. Yes, seriously. Excuse me. When I was watching this, I'm like, is Chris Chibnall basically throwing everything he loved of Doctor Who in one episode? Clearly he does, which we'll get to more of that. By the way, Unit is still run by, well, Kate. Now, unknown if basically Unit is basically... Because the last time it was seen in the show, part of this, was actually in Survivor the Flux episode, was actually part 5. Now, could it be back up and running since their funding was supposedly cut back in 2017? Don't know. It looks like it is, but hire freelancers with, of course, with Ace and Tegan. So they run based on personal experience. Okay. Have people who work with the Doctor work for Unit is actually a really smart idea when it comes to Kate Stewart. Oh, yes, definitely. And there's this wonderful scene, like, okay, so they find the Master in present day. Oh, but apparently the Master in present day is clean shaven. Despite the fact last time we seen he had a beard. Yes, so he wears sort of a suit. He gets, he's talking to people, and of course he's like lecturing in front of them. And they've all been shrugged thanks to tissue compressor. And I'm like, okay, so they mentioned tissue compressor, we don't see it. Seriously? We mention it, but we don't see it? That's kind of dumb. So, he's arrested by Unit, transported back to Unit UK, where he sees, well, Kate Stewart. Kate, of course, is very familiar with the Master, probably due to reading about it in her files. And, of course, Master, and then he sees Ace and Tegan. He says, hi, Tegan, how's your aunt? As in the same aunt he murdered back in 1981. And he says, oh, hi, Ace, how are you? And Ace is like, last time I saw you, you were half cat, which references Survival, which is so awesome, the fact that she did that. Yes, so he's taking it away, and of course, he tells Kate that your father was an idiot. I'm surprised, basically, that she doesn't basically, it's like, wait, hold on a minute. Slap. I'm surprised she doesn't basically just do that because he dared disrespect her awesome father, Brigadier Owslip Stewart. He may have some faults, but the guy was an awesome character. So he's taken in. Of course, Ace and Tegan are basically just shocked by the Doctor. Of course, that's another thing plays a role a little bit later. Yep. So I was like, man, we can't go to the TARDIS? Damn. Yes, so they go deal with a volcano, which because of a rogue Dalek, which when I heard this, I'm like, this was before, like, wait, did Chris Chibnall not remember a story that happened during Peter Capaldi's run? Where we have a Dalek who turned good, and we have this rogue Dalek who downloads information to the Doctor, which that's never followed, but it's like it's just dropped because it's taken by the Daleks to their headquarters, and, well, Ace, of course, basically, like, Ace and Tegan are just at headquarters, and we see the toy, like, and the Master's like, oh, I see you brought that toy. The Doctor didn't send it. I did. And the thing opens up, and we see a return of him. Atrid. First time he'd been seen since Timeless Child. It's like, oh yeah, I killed him. But then Clearly forgave me. I'm like, okay. Interesting. Yep, we have the Cybermen killing the unit soldiers. And of course, basically, like, and Ace basically, like, they get some weapons, like, it's not working, of course, on their floor, like, and apparently they had, like, floor panels open up, and she opens up, like, hey, I put some stuff here, and she opens up, and she pulls out her coat that she wore back in the 80s, and the silver baseball bat that she used back in Revolution of the Daleks, which is so hilarious, and they reference that story later. It's so awesome. Yes, seriously, it is so awesome. Yeah, it is so awesome. So, and of course, basically, like, Ace is trying to leave. And of course, Tegan basically tries to disrupt the whole Cybernet. And of course, she apparently, when Doc touched her shoulders, in the case of, yes, it was a 13th Doctor. Though in the case of Doctor, she forced to undergo force regeneration. Yes, force regeneration. Which is the first time this has happened since the second Doctor regenerated into the third Doctor. And of course, there's a plan put in place to reverse it. And there is. Oh, don't worry about that. Yeah, it is quite something to say the least. So, and we have the Master, the Daleks, and the Cybermen all in the same team together. Now, you might be thinking, is this the first time the Daleks and Cybermen share the same team together? No, the last time this happened was toward the end of Series 2. And there's one point you have where we have the Master dancing, and we have one Dalek and Cybermen looking like, really? It's like, what the heck? They both look at each other like, what the heck is going on? I thought that was so funny. The fact that we have a Cyberman and a Dalek look at each other and just bewildered and amused what the heck the Master's up to, which is just so funny. Yes, I just laughed like crazy. He was like, yeah, and of course they put put these two tubes, which, wait, I've seen these things before in End of Time Part 2, which was 12 years ago, well, 13 years ago. Yeah, the same ones used, because the whole thing related, as I mentioned, Torchwood, that one. I'm like, did Chris Chibnall contact BBC storage for these two things? Because literally they were the same exact thing, except they have slightly updated look, but they look like the same exact ones. Like that, or the fact his set designer pretty much ripped off that story. So that goes under it mentioned the Master Dalek plan. Yep. Oh yeah, the whole thing with the Cyber Masters where they can regenerate because they have the corpses of dead Time Lords. Oh yeah, and apparently the Master says, oh yeah, after I kill the Time Lords, I rated Gallifrey for everything. And I'm curious, what else did he take? If he did, that might be... It's like basically what he's saying here when he rated Gallifrey. That could be a potential something we might see in the future. In fact, we have a showrunner basically follows the plot for like maybe the Master let objects, stuff from Gallifrey all over the place after after Gallifrey gets destroyed. Yeah, I highly doubt he put everything in his tar. He put everything in his tar. We just left it there. We left it on. Well, we'll get to that. Oh, by the way, there's a Sabbath planet in orbit of Earth, and apparently is affecting Nicholas II's son, which is strange. Yeah, and the whole thing with it was not brought up again. So yeah, I'll keep your palace in pristine condition. So this is what I think is quite interesting. So apparently on the surface, we have returned the Master's TARDIS, which looks especially like the Doctor's TARDIS, both exterior and interior. By the front steps of the police, it's ha 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 ha. Yes, and if you're curious though, when was the last in this TARDIS was the last seen? Back in the two-part Spyfall. At the start of Series 12. Yes, seriously. It just seems kind of weird to see two TARDISes look exactly like each other, except the only difference is basically the interior looks a little different as a cube, which does play a role. And then we have the Master, and we had the Doctor turn into the Master. So they're like, oh yeah, change the outfit because the Doctor changed the outfit. So he puts on an outfit. He puts on the Seventh Doctor's vest. He apparently took off the Third coat, took off the shirt, and switched it out with the white shirt that 5th, 6th, and 7th wore. Put the vest that belonged to the 7th Doctor, the coat that belonged to the 5th Doctor, put the 13th coat back on, and take out the recorder, which it looked like a painted version of the one that the 2nd Doctor used. Which, like, that was interesting. It's like basically that you could say that this is just basically Sacha Dhawan basically fanboying over faxing all these stuff on Doctor Who history of this one. So he just left basically on this planet briefly. Well, then of course they gather up Ace, and then of course basically the Doctor returned back to normal. Well, after of course we see the hologram take the appearance of the fugitive Doctor. I'm like, that's interesting. I haven't seen her since like part 3 of Survival with the Flux. And presumably, and this is my guess anyways, because I highly doubt basically Russ Davis had anything to do with this character. So we have brief return to the fugitive Doctor in this one scene. Which, same actress. Though it is interesting that we pull in this one. Before this, we had this sort of timescape thing. We had this Guardian of the Edge. We had the return of the 1st, 5th, 6th, 7th, and even 8th Doctor, Paul McGann. First time he's been seen since Night of the Doctor. Sylvester McCoy, last time he was seen in Doctor Who was in a Doctor Who movie. Colin Baker, this is quite interesting for him, because this is the first time he's been on Doctor Who since the finale of Trial of the Time Lord back in 1986. And as for Peter Davidson, well, for him, it's actually not been that very long. For him, anyways, the last time he was seen in the show was back during a mini special that happened during the Rusty Davies era. In the first, and at the time, up until this one, the only multi-actor story in current Who. It was called Time Crash, where basically a 5th meeting the 10th Doctor, David Tennison. Who in real life, basically, this guy is his future son-in-law. Yes, seriously. Yeah, there was a recurring joke I heard where, the Doctor married his daughter, but it's actually the 10th Doctor married the daughter of the 5th Doctor, who also gave 5 grandchildren. And I'm sure he must have been a grandchild spoiler when they were babies. I'm sure about that. Though I've also heard also that David Tennant, prior to becoming Doctor, he's a big Doctor Who fan. He loves classic Doctor Who. And he loved it so much, he married the daughter of one of those doctors, who happened to be, at that point, prior to Matt Smith taking over the role, basically in the case of the 5th Doctor, here's the interesting fun fact about him. Do you know how old he was when he first took the role of Doctor? He was 29. And that record stood for many years until Matt Smith took the role at the age of 26. Yes, 26 years old. Yep, and outside of the whole Guardians of the Edge thing, my guess because they couldn't make any of the companions or, well, they did make one person who was a companion of the Sixth Doctor here, but she does not interact with the Doctor because she appears in the cameo at the very end, which I'll get to that. So then after Ace and of course the Doctor returns back to normal, and then the Doctor basically needs to host. Okay, they stop the Cybermen and the Master. Wait, we still have to do stuff with the Daleks with their whole explosion of the planet via volcanoes. And somehow the Master manipulated the Daleks. I'm like, that's interesting, because this is not the first time this has happened where the Masters work with the Daleks. Because last time I did this was back during Classic Who, in the final appearance of the original Master, Raj Delgado, in a story called Frontier in Space. That was the last time the Master worked with Daleks. I don't know if he worked with off-screen in the spin-off stuff. Okay, I don't really know. So, and Ace on board, and of course and by the way, there's also a really touching scene here where we have Ace after she's picked up by the TARDIS, and she's like, "Hey, you want to go smash some Daleks?" She's like, "Sure." Takes her baseball bat, and this is quite interesting. She goes to the volcano, and then she runs into Graham, who's got the psychic paper. Oh yeah, friend of the Doctor. Oh yeah, I fought this thing by 1963, and of course, Graham asks, "How old are you?" And she's like, "Don't ask a lady her age." If you're curious, Self-Actor is 60, and Bradley Walsh, who plays Graham, first time he's been seen since the previous year's New Year's special. For him, has not been very long, like a year. Oh, by the way, Ryan apparently is in our country, though I'm sure probably the actor was simply not available. So, oh, by the way, I did read online. Christian was asked why wasn't Tom Baker back this way, like he's alive. He was unavailable. We asked him, and he just was not available for this. I'm like, okay. Yeah. Because here's the thing. The TARDIS wiki, despite the fact, yeah, it can be edited, obviously, but that's why some of this information. I'm like, that's interesting. I'm glad they asked him, because I'm sure he would have loved to do this one, because this one was awesome. Here's the strange thing about his era for as a Doctor. Excuse me. He went to a few different companions. As far as I can tell, one is deceased. That's Elizabeth Sladen. The other, and of course the historic companion, the first Romana, she's no longer alive, sadly. Only about, if you think about two of his companions are still left alive, who were around more than an episode or two. Me. The one who played Leela, the one who plays Sarah Jane Smith. The actress is still very much alive, though I think she's in her 60s now. The second Romana is still alive. Well, obviously Tegan and Adric's still alive. Matter of fact, Adric is actually mentioned in this story. We have the fifth Doctor, well, the hologram, probably through his memories, talking to Tegan. Or Tegan's like, he must have forgotten me. And of course, Ace is like, I never forget you. And I love the fact they kind of have these two records, even though it's a hologram, but it's basically Tegan reconciling with her Doctor, which is awesome. And then we have this really wonderful scene where Ace is reconciling with her Doctor. By the way, she's calling the 13th Doctor Professor, which is something she did call him back during her era. Even though she was only of 2 seasons, but she was an absolutely great companion. And Sophie Aldred at the time was a very beautiful woman. Like, my gosh, so gorgeous. And right now she's 60, but she looks actually not that bad for her age. I mean, aside from the wrinkles, she looks virtually the same. Yeah. That's the only difference. In fact, she got wrinkles. I mean, she looks virtually the same person. I think that the only difference, aside from that, she looked like she got taller since the 80s and got wrinkles. That's it. Tegan, kind of this, I think for Tegan, mostly, but for her, if I can tell for her, aside from the fact she got a little bit older with age, which that's obvious. Janet Fielding herself does look a bit different, but not too drastic. Yes, Janet Fielding, which that's not a current picture of her. Let's see if I can find a picture of her, because basically the way she looks currently is way, way different. Yeah, I'm looking at a picture right now. Well, voice-wise, the same. Yeah, she's currently 69. Yeah, 69, which out of all the companions, she's one of the more older ones, which is a surprise. The other one later. I'm looking at pictures of her the way she looked back in the 80s and currently. She looked like she did, her face changed, was mostly the same. It's not like she got older. Not much change, per se. Not really. Kind of similar in case with Sophie Aldred. Very similar case. Yep. So, and of course, basically, after the doctor turned back normal, of course, they have to stop the Sire planet after the take care of, because Azar take care of one of them anyways. Of course, she used the explosive, which she was known for back in Class Doctor, which was so happy to see us again. And of course, taking the baseball bat and smashing a Dalek with it, which is such a nod to Revolution Daleks, the one from the 80s, which is so awesome. Yep. Then, of course, basically, like, then she runs to Tegan and Kate after they destroy the building. Like, oh, it's like, don't even get bad side. And of course, before she even asks Tegan, Tegan says, yes, I like going to TARDIS. And I'm like, okay. Hey, Kate, you want to come along too? It's like, sure. Yep. And with, of course, the returning, where is he on here? Where is he? Bender. Yeah, he came back in the story. Yeah, he came back and he's like crashing a plane. Of course, Yaz picks him up, and of course they surround him, and of course they use the Doctor goes over to the Master TARDIS, use a basically like jump with the Master TARDIS up to the future, and fire the weapon at the plane to freezing and turn to steel. And then afterwards, the Master comes out of his own TARDIS. The Master shows up and basically is like, you ruined everything. And of course she frees the creature who was held prisoner. Like, okay, I'm gonna free you, but I need you to destroy this place before you go. And after the creature's like, okay, smashes around. Of course, he then redirects the thing. Creature at the Doctor, basically like, if I can't be a doctor, neither can you. Which, this is quite strange though, for the Master. It's just me, or by sheer coincidence, that 2 regenerations in a row that he's involved with, where you have, he's kind of responsible for 12th regeneration to 13th, and, well, also 13th to 14th. I'm like, that is interesting. Oh, by the way, this is the 3rd time this has happened overall. Yeah, 2nd time in a row, but 3rd time overall that he is responsible. Well, in a way, responsible for the regeneration. Before that what happened with 12 to 13th, the last time this happened was back in 1981 in the episode Logopolis. We have 4th regeneration to 5th, and they fell off a satellite dish. Yeah, crashing down. Which, that is interesting, the fact he's did that 3 times now, where he's responsible for 3 regenerations. Actually, 3. Though indirectly you could say 4 with 7th and 8th, though that was caused by something else. Yep, so then of course Ace, Tegan, and of course, by the way, in the previous story, the Doctor politely turned down Yaz because Yaz had a thing for her, and of course she politely turned her down. And of course the crisis is over. Then of course basically Yaz, everyone of course goes home. Yaz says goodbye to her properly. Has some ice, of course, see her hands start to regenerate. Then of course she goes off and she meets up with other previous companions. Some of whom have not been seen in decades. Like, of course, we see at this thing we see Graham, we see Yaz, we see Kate, we see Tegan, Ace. Great to see them all. And we also return of 2 companions who, well, one who's not been seen since 1987, and the other one who's not been seen since 1965. I'm like, really? Yes, really. And this you'll find interesting, to say the least. We see the return in the story of Ian Chesterton for the first time since the story The Chase, back during first Doctor Who, and played by the same actor, who's shockingly still alive. And apparently, at the time this story came out, he was 95, which made him the oldest actor in the whole story. I mean, like, oh, by the way, also return of Jo Jones. Last time seen back in Death Doctor, Sarah Jane Adventures. Great to see Kate Manning. Always great to see her. She looked like, of course, like, aside from actually a little bit older, she virtually hasn't hardly aged at all since the 70s. Yep. But Ian was such a surprise. Now, I may not be a biggest fan of the first Doctor Sarah, but Ian Chesterton was a pretty interesting character. Basically, it was kind of like a good friend of the Doctor. Though I did read he did in a non-canon story, he met up with the 11th Doctor, and from what I read, he did marry Barbara, his fellow co-worker, who he later married, I think, for a long time. And we also return of Melanie Bush, which they actually give it a last name, which that was actually from the spin-off material. And here's something interesting though. She, like Ian and Joe and Ace and Tegan, played by the same actress, Bonnie Longford. And she, like the others, doesn't look much different. I'm like, wow. That is shocking to say the least. The fact that it's like that. Now, if you're curious though, what happened to Barbara, you might ask. Is the actress played Barbara still alive? That's a very good question, Jacqueline Hill. Sadly, no. She passed away in 1993. Okay. So, before I continue with the other stuff, let's find out basically if any other first Doctor companions are still alive. How about the actress played Susan Foreman, who's played by Carol Ann Ford? She is still very much alive at the age of 83. Okay. What about Vicky, who sadly wasn't on the series, but played by Maurice O'Brien? She is, from what I can tell, very much alive. Yep. Okay. Steven Tyler, who was played by, from what I heard, was comedian Peter Peeves. He is still alive at the age of 84. Sarah Kingdom, who is played by Jean Marsh, ex-wife of John Pertwee. She is still alive at the age of 89. Yep. Dodo Chapel, which is actually a reference to her in a story for, I think it was a two-part involving the Master toward the end. I believe it was during Pierre Capaldi's story, where apparently her family was involved with a funeral home business. Yes. I'm like, that's interesting. Yes. Like, I didn't really expect that at all. Not really. She was played by Jackie Lane, and Jackie Lane is sadly no longer alive. She passed away just a couple years ago. Ben and Polly. Okay. So apparently they brought back her for a different actress. The original actress who played her is still very much alive, but she's 81 years old. And look at her, she does look like she's aged a little bit. Yeah. Well, apparently when they brought her back for Twice Upon a Time, they changed actors for some reason for her, which is strange. Like, the actress is still very much alive. I'm not sure why they could bring it. Well, probably because they want to play a younger version of the character, obviously. The actor who played Ben, he is sadly no longer alive. He passed away in 1998. Yeah, roughly about 25 years ago. So of the first Darkest Companions, at least one Um, I'd say about two has since passed away. Yep, definitely is two. Uh, Second act companions. I'm surprised they never become. Let's see, Fraser Hines. Oh, he's still very much alive. You could bring him back. That would be interesting. But nope, he's not. He was not brought back for the story for some reason. Like, okay. What about Victoria? Is Deborah Walting? Is she still very much alive? No, sadly she's not. She passed away in 2017. So of the second Doctor's companions, she is one of two who's passed away. Of course, is Ben. What about the one who played Zoe? She did look like she has aged. She's still very much alive. So of the first Doctor's companions, yeah, of the first two, for the second Doctor, because Ben and Polly were holdovers from the previous one, so of his own companions, one has passed away. Only one. Okay, but what about the first one? The first one, from what I can tell, at least two have since passed away. Just the actress played Barbara, and the actor played Ben. Yep. Third, well, they did make one third Doctor companion, that was Joe Jones. Okay, that's perfectly fine. Fourth Doctor, for his companions. Well, Sarah Jane, still no longer alive. Harry Sullivan, not alive anymore. The actor passed away I think he passed away in the 80s, the actor played him. Yeah, Sally passed away in 1986. What did he die of, you might ask? A diabetic heart attack at the age of 42. Okay. Leela. Oh, this actress is still very much alive. At the age of 72. Yep. K9, well, I'm sure his actress so much alive, I'm not going to go with it. Romana, her first actress is no longer alive, Mary Tim, passed away in 2012. Leela Ward is still very much alive. I'm surprised they didn't make her. Maybe because she's not based on Earth, that's probably the reason why I couldn't exactly bring the character back. Adric, well, there's a reason why this character, because they actually do mention the story, played Matthew Wardhouse. Is he still alive? Yes, he is. And from what I heard, he's trying to stay far away from the Doctor Who as possible because the quick reception toward his character. Not toward him, just the character. Nyssa was not bad about the story for some reason. And she is still very much alive. Excuse me. So some of these companions that get brought back, but here's the strange thing though. For modern companions, only Jodie Whittaker's companions, well, in the case of ones who have been 12, they're no longer alive. So they're out of the question. Okay. What about the companions for 10th Doctor? Well, one is off in another dimension. One is going to come back. Don't worry, she'll come back. Don Nobles going to come back. Martha Jones, not sure why they can bring back her. So, Grace, who was in Doctor Who movie, she can't come back because of legal issues. Not the actress, probably. They'll probably bring back the actress. It's just basically they can't bring back the character. Because of, well, the reason why they can't bring her back is because of Universal. Yep. Universal is the reason why they cannot bring her back. And you're thinking, really? Universal is the reason why they can't bring her back. Well, because Universal is involved in the making of Doctor Who movie. The actress of Larry, she's still very much alive. Yep, she still is. They can bring the actress, no problem. It just they can't bring back the character. Yeah, Grace Holloway. It's just basically, it's just stuff with Universal, so they can't bring back the character. So they could, but they probably don't want to. Probably because she was only one story. Yeah. But it's like they remake the Eighth Doctor, no problem, which is great to see him again. But not his only companion he actually had. The one who's considered a companion because she did was in the TARDIS very briefly. Yep. Oh yeah, she was the first companion actually kissing the lips ever in Doctor Who. But this story overall, and of course, oh, by the way, the ending. I have to talk about the ending. So after meeting the previous companions, and of course you have instantly her, because, well, Graham and Yaz job with the female Doctor, and of course the other ones didn't meet him. So then we have the Doctor by herself in a TARDIS, tells the TARDIS, like take care of the next one. So she steps outside, she did one last time, and then she regenerates. And you have Jodie Whittaker, hands out high like this, and she regenerates herself along with her clothes. Yes, her clothes, which that's the first that's happened. And she regenerates into the David Tennison Doctor. What? Yes, so he was brought back as the 14th Doctor. Why is he back? For the 60th anniversary specials coming out later this year. Actually, in about a few months, actually. They have cast a 15th Doctor. You're thinking, really? They have? Yes, they have. Yeah. So the new Doctor, who's wearing this like blue coat with his vest look like it's partially like one button. Now, it's like he just for these specials, and then we have the new one who. Okay, so he's gonna play by one who's Scottish, first black actor, played by Noguchi Gitawa. Now, I have heard a rumor about this version of Doctor. Apparently, the 15th Doctor is implied to be gay. And you're thinking, what? Yes, seriously. That is according to a rumor I heard. They're going to have this be openly gay character. I'm like, I don't know why. Oh yeah, and also, with Power of the Doctor, Chris Chibnall has left Doctor Who. He started a story called 42, and he's left with this very story. This is his last one. And, well, he will be back Doctor Who. But we do have a return of Rusty Davies. First time since End of Time Part 2 he's been on the Doctor. And he is going to be Doctor this point forward. Of course, makes sense. Well, he returned and goes to David Tennant, so he's going to write the 3 specials. Yes. Do not know. Now, what could be the reason why he came back? Don't know. And apparently we're going to have a transgender character named Rose. Part of the 15th Doctor. Yes. And her name is Ruby Sunday. Yeah. Now, am I looking forward to watching the 6th anniversary specials? Yes. I have heard these are the titles of these ones. The Star Beast, Yellow Blue Launder, and The Giggle. That is the rumored title of these ones. Yes. But I think overall these 3 specials are really good. It's nice to the fact that the final story of the Doctor, for 13th Doctor, where it is directed by the same person who directed the very first story. Is this, well, technically no. It's the same one who directed the opening story of the 2nd series, James Mangold Stone. I'm like, okay, yeah. He also directed episode 6, 9, and 10. And he directed the opening 2 stories of 13 and 4. This will direct the last one. So it's kind of nice picking back for. And it seems as though, I will get my final thoughts. One thing I should point out that I'm going to final thoughts right now is that Chris Chibnall wrote a lot of this era. It's like first series where, if you think about it, out of the 10 episodes plus the special, which technically I think it was 11, the main 10 episodes, he wrote, basically, out of the 10, he wrote 6. Excuse me. For 12, he wrote more this time. Though he did have a co-writer for 3 of them, he basically skipped over. He didn't like he had a co-writer on 3 stories, and on different 3 stories he wasn't writing at all. Basically, episodes 3, 4, and 8 were not written by him. Series 13 entirely written by him, except for one story, who was the same writer who wrote the 8th story. Interesting. And in the case of the specials, he wrote by himself for the first and third one. He did write the second one. He co-wrote that with Ella Road. Yes. Which I think was her first story with Doctor Who. Yes, and now Russ Davis coming back for all this other stuff. Now you might be thinking, did when you had someone like Russ Davis on The Doctor, did he write every single story for like his first year? Kind of, yes. All but 1, 2, 3, 4, all but 5. So 5 out of 13 he did not write. For the second series, it was 1, 2, 3. He only wrote it. He basically was more open to have more writers on the show for the second series. He only wrote for the second series like 1, 2, 3, 4, only 5 stories, which is less. And as for series 3, he wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once again, 5. And series 4, once again 5 because the other writers read it. But the specials, he did write all of those. The specials that came between series 4 and 5. But Stephen Moffat, for his first series, he didn't write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Basically, he only wrote, out of the 13 episodes, he wrote a little bit more than Russ Davis did for a whole series since he was the showrunner. He wrote 6 for his first series. For his second series, which is split in 2 parts, for reasons, he wrote the opening 2 stories. He wrote the 2-part in the middle, and he wrote the finale. He wrote basically 6 stories once again. For series 7, he wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories this time. Like, that's different. Well, so it was a special. Basically, really 4. For the specials, basically, they came between that and 7 and 8. He wrote for them. For series 8, he basically was a little more hands-on with this one. Looked like he didn't write 1, 2. Basically, wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Back up to 6 again. For series 9, he wrote 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, basically only 6. Not almost the entire freaking series. For series 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5. But not the Keys of Chibnall. Oh no, guy wrote almost the entire series. Yes, do not know why he did this for, but he did. He wrote more stories with Doctor Who. Like, oh my gosh, he wrote a lot of stories. And if you're really curious though, how many stories overall did he write for Doctor Who? Okay, I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 episodes. 28. And his first one he did back in 2007. 07. Like, wow. Interesting. Yes. So, overall, how do I feel about the Jodie Whittaker era? The first series, good start. Okay, and then not very disappointing finale. I think Series 2 was a lot better than Series 1. I'd say most of the way through was really good. Except for the retcon in the finale, I thought it was a really good series. Flux was basically a way for damage control. Because the series needed a lot of backlash. So basically it was damage control. Trying to basically... I'm sure Chibnall probably was told by higher-ups, yeah, this retcon is not a good idea. Just explore for a little bit. And then once you basically just bury it. I want you to end it here and do not bring up ever again, because I'm sure people at the BBC probably were not happy with this retcon. And then here's the thing. With these 3 specials, is that retcon brought up here? Nope. Never is. The divisions are brought up, the retcon, nothing. It's like, yeah, let's just bury it and never mention it ever again. Do I think Rusty was going to do anything with it? Highly doubtful. I highly doubt he would do anything with this retcon. I'm sure even he felt this, though. I'm not sure how he felt about the story at all. Either he felt as though this was portrayal, basically how Doctor Who was written. So, I'm trying to pull back on it. And that's my personal take on it. The companions. Interesting, though, the fact that we didn't have like a lot of changes with companions. Only changed like just a couple times. Yaz is probably, if you think about it, Yaz is the only companion who appeared in all of Jodie Whittaker stories. And you're thinking, that is interesting. Like, from start to finish of an entire era. And you're thinking, that is interesting. The last thing that happened was when Rose was on Doctor Who, and she was on basically 2 seasons of the show, though with 2 different doctors mostly, but she was there for the entirety of the 9th Doctor's run. She was the first one since Rose to do this for an entire era. For multiple seasons, I would probably say for kind of like an entire era per se, this is probably the first this has happened since Jamie McCrammon back during the 2nd Doctor era. Mostly, yes. Actually, no, it was not that one. It was, I would say, the only time I can think of this has happened was Tegan from the 5th Doctor. From the start, and she left with the 3rd to last episode of the whole series. 3rd to last one of that era. And you could say, yeah, kind of the same thing with that one. But if you think about it, she only went through 5 companions. Like 5 original companions that were not returning companions in this one. You had Graham, Ryan, Yaz, and then Dan for the brief time he was there. Dan was not there very long. He was only there for like 9 stories. And that was it. That's it for Dan. While Graham and Ryan were there for, if you think about it, if you count the specials, those 2 were there for 22 episodes. While in the case of Yaz, the entire thing, which she was an interesting character. I did think was kind of weird. They kind of dropped her whole thing being a police officer. Like after series 2, it's like they just stopped. Like after series 12, they just dropped it for some reason. I'm not sure why. But is this a bad era? No, I don't think so. Do I think that, like in the case of the previous Doctors, here's the only thing I said about her era. She only brought back one alien who had not been seen since Class Doctor Who, and that was the Sea Devils. Though, another positive, we had a return of 2 previous, like, not only 2, we had the return of 5 previous companions. 5. Not only Tegan and Nissa, which everybody knew about that. That was announced ahead of time. But I think ended up going to the last story. No one knew about Melanie returning or Ian. No one had any idea those 2 returning. Which I thought was great to see those 2. Yes, absolutely fantastic. Kate Stewart, I think it was great they brought her back. Sadly, she was only here for, if you think about it, she was not here very long. Not really. If you think about it, she was only here for like roughly about 3 stories, like 3 episodes, and that was it. I'm like, why? That makes no sense. Like, she's absent for the first 2 series for no reason. And they finally bring her back toward the end of Joe Wicker's time on the show. Like, why would they wait so long to bring her back? Is it because the actor's unavailable? It is possible. That is probably the reason why that they couldn't bring back the actors. Maybe she was just simply not available. That was probably the reason why. Oh, I like this. Apparently, she's getting spin-off server, which is awesome. But my guess is probably the reason why she was not available was doing her show. Let's see. I think because she was doing Holby City, which was a series that was on BBC for a while. I think that may have been the reason why. Yes. I think because he was working on this other show, that's probably the reason why. Playing a character named Bertie Wolf. That could be the reason why, possibly, but I'm not really sure. That could be the reason why she can appear more. But that is just my personal theory, is that she probably just appeared on Doctor Who, probably in between times, basically. In between times she appeared on, well, maybe because she's been helpful say it. That's my only theory, the reason why she couldn't appear on the show that very much. But I'm hoping we might get a chance to see her more, especially if we get that spin-off show for her, which I think is great. The fact that Russ Davis is finally doing spin-off shows again, which, if you think about it, this is probably, like, with that unit show coming, which I'm hoping a chance to watch it. This will be the first time that we've had a spin-off for Doctor Who on the air since Class. Yes, that was the last known one, but that lasted for one season. But that was not a very good time, basically, for the series. Basically, because BBC was finding out trouble at that point. But on the same time as the Doctor Who, I'm like, that's interesting. Because if you think about it, there hasn't been many spin-offs. I mean, if you think about it, this is technically the fourth spin-off we've had Doctor Who since the series was brought back in 2005. Because first you had Torchwood, the Era Sarah Adventures, the K9 show, which only lasted one season, that no one talks about, and now this show. I think a show for Unit is an absolutely fantastic idea. I love this idea. Especially if we could see return of having, especially if we could have, get this, if we could see return of the previous companions on there as supporting characters. I think that's fantastic. Yes, I personally I would love to see this. I mean, Kate Stewart is a very familiar character for some people. I mean, she only first showed up like 10, 11 years ago. Not on the show very much, but she's an absolute great character. She is technically a legacy character because she's an offspring of one of the classic recurring characters of the series, bringing out so much Stewart. So, very much looking forward to that. I'm sorry this is basically very long, but it's been a lot to talk about for this special. But I'm going to here. I would do the comic corner, but I'm talking for such a long time. I figured though, I'm going to here. I'm going to call it a night. Okay? Next video tomorrow. With probably more Doctor Who, okay? Bye.